So one more thing before we talk a little bit about the works of film and art that we're going to be talking about this week. There is another aspect to this, right? When we talk about the idea of Sisyphus himself and the idea of existentialism and the way that it fits with the absurd, it's this notion of hope, right? So Camus is kind of against this notion of hope. In a way, he's kind of against this notion of the leap that Kierkegaard talks about when he talks about the leap of faith. For Camus, the idea of hope is antithetical to the idea of the absurd. It is impossible for us to become absurd heroes if we maintain hope in anything other than ourselves, right? And we know that we have no answers other than to fight, right? Camus says that there is a particular Russian philosopher who has basically concluded that where there is, again, no other rational reality, right, that is God. Camus says that that is the absurd. This Russian philosopher says that, God is for the impossible things. God is who we rely on when we run up against something that we have no answer for. That this is precisely why we need God. Otherwise, why would we need, God if we're capable of doing everything that's possible, right, on the earth, then, that should be good enough. For Camus, this is precisely where we sort of intersect with the idea of Sisyphus himself. Sisyphus, who decided to defy the gods, wanted to live longer, basically told the gods at the point of his death he needed to go back and say goodbye to people, needed to go back and tie up some loose ends, and then just decided never to come back, right? The gods eventually find him and decide they will punish him for the rest of his existence by forcing him to roll a rock up a hill where it will roll back down. He's got to get it and roll it back up and back down, right? You may have seen, right, the memes that, something rolling up a hill and back down. And Camus says the gods intended for this to be a punishment because there is no hope in this particular punishment. It is a useless act. Nothing that is done by Sisyphus will ever cause this act to end. He will forever roll the rock up and down the hill. And Camus says we must assume that he is happy, primarily because he has given up the hope that this is a useful act, right? Giving up hope and simply accepting the work as the work, accepting the action that we do, very existentially, right? Accepting that what we do is what is, allows us to fill ourselves with all that we need, right? If we are not relying on anything other than what we can provide for ourselves, then we cannot be disappointed by anybody other than ourselves. For Camus, this is where the question of philosophical and true actual physical suicide comes from, is this idea that we owe it to ourselves and owe it to the rest of humanity to have faith only in ourselves, that we are enough, that we don't need to be disappointed by the world because the world is going to do what the world does. We are responsible for what we're responsible for. And in a way, right, it is very much like Sartre describes existentialism, a very positive philosophy. For existentialism, it's extremely positive for Sartre because he says, right, we are responsible for ourselves, we are not responsible for anybody else, and our happiness comes from what we provide, right? If we are responsible, then, right, the optimism that we have is that what we make of our lives is what we will be, and that we have control over those parts of our lives that we can control. We respond the way that we can respond, but we basically run ourselves. We are our own masters. Camus very similarly says the hope that we have has to be in ourselves. It cannot be in anything else, any other philosophy, any other person, right? That certainly there's not a reason not to have friends, right? But that our hope and our reliability, our reliance should be in ourselves, and that is the best way to fight the absurd, by saying simply that we're not going to give up on life because we're not going to give up on ourselves. We are our own lives. Does this make for a good philosophy? It depends on who you talk to, right? For a lot of people, this idea of relying only on self flies in the face of a hope that they put into God, right? If you talk with many people who have suffered a tragedy, their hope is often in the fact that at some point in time all will be restored, right? That the person that we have lost, or the thing that we have had go poorly, will all be taken care of someday when this is all over and we get to heaven. Others, no, it is this self-reliant idea. Is there a right or is there a wrong? Again, right, this is a very personal question. For us in this class, we have to be able to see how this philosophy works so that we can apply it to what we're going to see. Themes of hope, themes of responsibility, these are going to be incredibly important for us. We're looking at everything that we read and look at from now on with those lenses of existential philosophy, absurdist philosophy, right? We're going to try to look at them in positive senses in many cases, right? Or to see how the characters stray from this, right? When we look at Endgame by Beckett in several weeks, are we looking at a ham and clove who are hopeful and therefore will be disappointed, because that is the ultimate idea of the absurd? If putting your hope in something else is going to disappoint you because you cannot control the other thing, right? You can control your own actions. In Rhinoceros, accepting or deciding not to accept what is going on, what does it depend on? Who do we rely on? Who can we look at for our hope? Is it anybody? Our character's trying to do that. So now we're going to go and look at some of these other works that we have talked about a little bit.